Welcome to the Well-Seasoned Librarian podcast. I'm Dean Jones, your host, and this is Season 6, Episode 19. Today I'm talking to Raquel Sharp from the company Charlie Cart. I don't know if you've heard of Charlie Cart. They're a program that does works at schools and libraries around the country. And they were formed in 2015 by the former director of the Edible Schoolyard Project and a team of educators and designers. They set out to create an affordable and comprehensive food education program, giving kids the power to make healthy choices for life. The result is an all-in-one program, a kitchen on wheels, and full curriculum with classroom-tested recipes connecting the dots between food, health, and the environment. When we consider that today 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. will go hungry, 1 in 3 will develop type 2 diabetes in their lifetime, food security and healthy eating requires 2 things: access to fresh, healthy food. I'm not talking about chips or corn nuts and stuff. We're talking about fresh, healthy food. And basic skills to prepare these foods is simple. Food education is essential for lifelong health. Raquel started her food education career with the Edible Schoolyard in Berkeley, California, local, and went on to become a founding staff member of the Edible Schoolyard at Grimley Charter Schools, where she designed and built a food education program from the ground up. That is pretty impressive. Raquel has more than 10 years classroom experience as a food educator and holds a master's in health education from Teachers College, Columbia University. Without ado, I'm going to go right to the podcast episode where I'm talking with Raquel Sharp from the Charlie Cart Project. Welcome to the Well-Seasoned Librarian podcast. This is Dean Jones, your host, and today I'm very honored to be talking to the Deputy Director of the Charlie Cart Project, Raquel Sharp. Raquel, thank you for being on the program.
Thanks for having me, Dean.
Now, for our listeners who are not familiar with Charlie Cart, can you tell us a little bit about the program?
Sure. So the Charlie Cart Project is an organization that was started in Berkeley, California, with the goal to bring food education into any learning environment. So the Charlie Cart itself is a mobile kitchen cart, and it's an inclusive program with the mobile kitchen cart, curriculum, tools, and training for any educator to teach hands-on food education.
Now, the project was founded by the former director of Edible Schoolyard here in Berkeley. How are those two programs different? Like what's unique about each of those things?
Great question. So our founder, Carolyn Fetterman, worked at the Edible Schoolyard. She was the director of the Edible Schoolyard here in Berkeley for a long time. And she also worked very closely with Alice Waters at the Chez Panisse Foundation on various projects, all the way from, dinners on the Washington Mall to, local campaigns to change school lunch in Berkeley Unified. And what she saw was that the program at the Edible Schoolyard here in Berkeley was extremely effective in changing the food environment, not just at the school, but in the broader community for parents, for families, for local residents. And so she wanted to bring that concept to more people across the country. Now, when you look at the Edible Schoolyard Project, it is immensely effective largely because it's resource intensive. There's a full garden, it's a 1-acre garden, there's a full kitchen classroom, and not every school in every district can afford such an endeavor. So she thought, okay, if we can't bring all the kids to the kitchen, what if we brought the kitchen to the kids? And what if we made something that was mobile and super user friendly and just really straightforward? She likes to say analog, right? It's like the opposite of this digital age we're working in, where here's the oven, here's the stove, and we're just going to crack some eggs or we're just going to churn butter. And she really wanted to bring that experience to more people, more kids across the country.
Now, I want to tell our listeners, when Raquel says that she's working across the country, this is no joke. So it's not just a local thing. So to date, Charlie Cart Project has trained over 1,000 educators. Think about that, 1,000 educators in 45 states. Every Charlie Cart site received training, support, and have a 54 lesson curriculum aligned to academic content standards. Wow. How do you guys do all that? How do you guys manage that?
Well, first, we just never even could have imagined that it would be this big, this tiny idea, but we are so grateful to all the educators across the country, not just the ones that we've, been able to train, but everyone who works at the, 300 organizations who have Charlie cards. Everyone who works there, right, is supporting this. And um, so, from the get go, we really wanted to create a curriculum that was not only kid friendly, where the kids were eating and tasting delicious things, but also educator friendly. And that's why we made the curriculum aligned to Common Core standards. We consulted with design experts, curriculum experts, math standard experts, all these people who gave their intellectual contributions to the curriculum to help teachers pick up the curriculum and just run with it. So they didn't have to do extra work. We all know our teachers are inundated with so much work and they're overworked and they're tired. And so we just wanted to make it as simple as possible. And that's what we did. And so, yeah, the traction has been amazing. We're in 45 states. There's 300 Charlie carts across the country in organizations like schools, libraries, food banks, some hospitals, even Veterans Affairs. I mean, folks really can see that the benefit of the Charlie cart is it's really versatile. So you could use it at the farmer's market or in a hospital clinic, and it works well to serve the needs of any organization.
Now, I was doing some research on the Charlie cart itself because I like the concept, and I'm just thrilled by the whole idea of this. I just think it's magnificent. So it's a state-of-the-art mobile kitchen, including cookware, an oven, induction cooktop, which is kind of it doesn't need flame necessarily. It's kind of a specialized cooktop that's safe. And then a sink with gray water recovery optimized for resource constrained environments. Can we talk about how the cart works and interacts with the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. So the mobile kitchen cart itself is designed to be a central focal point for folks to gather around and teach cooking. So to teach hands-on food education. And so much went into the designing the cart. We consulted with designers, builders, engineers, teachers, parents, students, right? Because the kids had to love it too. It's brightly colored. It says, hello, and I'm happy to be here. It's exciting for the kids when they see it wheeled into the classroom. And we knew that we needed to have various elements to make it easy to cook. So we wanted to have a compact convection oven and an induction cooktop. We knew that we needed some sort of sink. And so where we landed was it has all of those things, and the gray water sink is perfect for wheeling around because you fill it up yourself. You use the sink and then you dump out the water. And it can be used inside or outside. It has electricity on it. You just plug it in and you can plug in your appliances to the cart. So, I mean, it required a lot of research and iteration for sure in the beginning. We had a couple failed models, but we also had amazing pilot organizations who were willing to take a chance on us and try it out. And they gave us amazing feedback. And from there, we were able to iterate, and we have what we have now, which is the Charlie cart. And so, yeah, so it took a lot to design it and, and get it to where it is today.
I've been talking to a lot of people on the program that work with students with food programs, and we talk a lot about the impact of this. And I think not everybody really gets this, because I looked at the stats when I was doing the research that you guys provided. It says 1 in 6 kids in the US will go hungry. I mean, if you think about like a school with 100 kids, and you look at the 1 in 6 kids, that's a pretty large proportion of those kids that are going hungry. And 1 in 3 will develop type 2 diabetes in their lifetime. 1 in 3. I mean,
Mhm.
again, you think about a school of like 100 kids, you look at 1 in 3, it's a pretty large amount of those kids are going to get type 2 diabetes. I mean, these are pretty palpable statistics, and they kind of hit you in the face. So I was going to say, like, when we talk about things like health, climate, and economy that are being linked, um, what are you guys seeing when you guys do your work, and when you talk to the instructors and the people that are receiving this, what are you hearing from people that you could talk to people and show them how important this is?
Yeah, well, firstly, I mean, yeah, 1 in 6 going hungry is a staggering, statistic that just breaks your heart, right? It just
Hmm.
you can see the kids' faces almost, and in addition to that, we also know that in K-12 education, most kids are receiving less than 8 hours of nutrition education per year, which the research says is not even enough to help them create healthy habits and healthy behaviors toward food. So, so we're far, far away from where we need to be. And this is just one way to close that gap is, giving kids an experiential learning environment where they can try new foods and be exposed to new flavors and new ideas um, and trying, a lot of people don't realize that the exposure piece is critically important because kids need at least 15 times to try something before they'll actually say, oh, I like it, right?
Yeah.
So if they're not getting that in other places at home, at church, or at their grandparents, or, and at least they're getting some of that at school, then they're more likely to pick up those vegetables when they are presented with those. So the food education piece is really important. And to your point about hunger, I think about one of our schools in Wyoming where we did a training with them, and we were talking to the educators, and the kids were about fifth or sixth grade, so pretty young. And the teacher said to us, what you're providing for us is so important because a lot of these kids will go home and they're responsible for their younger
Yes,
siblings.
absolutely.
Right. And so, especially in today's world where two parents, you need a dual income household, it's really hard to be home for your kids after school. It's really hard to, make a scratch cooked meal. And so, when the kids can at least prepare something healthier for a snack for them and their younger siblings, or at least they know, okay, well, we can have say, let's try to make a smoothie, or let's make a quesadilla with some spinach in it, or, something that is of some sustenance that is not just a bag of chips, then those little tiny incremental changes have a broad effect on the trajectory of their health.
What kinds of food preparation are the kids doing? Like, I know you just talked about it, but like, can you give us an example of some of the things you've seen that they're doing?
Yeah, so the kids are really there to see the food from its raw form. We're really trying to show them, okay, this is, you know, um, lettuce, or these are tomatoes, this is zucchini in its raw form, and now we're going to cut it, transform it, and cook it into something else, into something delicious. And so they are cooking things like stir fries, or they're cooking things like flatbread, spiced flatbread with spiced butter. They're making things like homemade butter. Most kids don't even realize it comes from cream, or, that it comes from cows. So, they're making homemade butter. They're learning about herbs and how herbs flavor our food. So lots of different things. And then in terms of recipes, and then woven into all of those recipes are threads about food, health, and the environment. So while they might be making a delicious, from scratch cornbread or tortilla, they're also learning about how corn arrived in the Americas, and how it became a staple food for us and how it's used now. And as they get older, they might then learn about how corn is used in other ways in industry. So there are threads throughout the curriculum that take kids on a journey for them to be able to start making those connections between health, climate, and the economy, like you're saying. So, it is about exposure and the learning of new foods. And then as they get older, it's also about how are all these things connected and how am I connected to them? So it's really comprehensive in that way, and we also encourage our educators also to make things that speak to them. Every region of the country has regional foods that are traditional to where they are living. California is different than Texas, which is different than South Carolina, which is different than Massachusetts. So we spend a lot of time coaching our educators to be able to take what's relevant to them and their community and transform it into a lesson that is relevant to kids or even adults in their larger community.
This episode is sponsored by Culinary Historians of Northern California, a Bay Area educational group dedicated to the study of food, drink, and culture in human history. To learn more about this organization and their work, please visit their website at www.chnorcal.org. I wanted to ask, looking across the United States, and I'm seeing how Charlie card is being used in so many states. Is there any region that's using it the most or getting the most out of it or asking for it the most? Like, what part of the United States is really being impacted by this kind of education?
That's a really great question. What comes to mind for me, I mean, there's probably a few that are equally as interested, but one that comes to mind for me is South Carolina. And the reason that it comes to mind is because there's such a strong partnership there between the schools, the library system, and the food bank system. And that's something that those folks on the ground have been able to cultivate and harness and to their credit, they realize that a lot of the kids who were going to the library after school for other reasons, homework help, a place to play, a place to feel safe. We're also hungry and interested in how to make a healthy snack or how to, make dinner. So those kids were also what the community noticed was that those families were also patrons of the food bank, and they were also the kids at Title I schools in the district. So knowing that, they were able to triangulate, if you will, and say, let's form partnerships and share the Charlie cart that we have and do food education in all of these places so that we can increase exposure and help the kids have a deeper understanding of food.
When you go into right now, I'm seeing a lot of libraries partnering with school systems because oftentimes schools really need the extra help from libraries to get homework help, and many kids are using the libraries to kind of hang out until their parents get off work, etc. So it's a good place to study. How do you approach? Do you contact the school first, or you contact the library first, or you kind of talk to both?
It's really a matter of speaking with both, sometimes at the same time, but usually folks will already have a good pulse on their own community and say, my school doesn't have a library anymore. So our community library is really the place where kids get books and find resources. And so they'll usually tell us, the library wants a Charlie cart because all the kids, are coming after school and we want to do food education, or we want to increase our neighborhood, our community's food literacy skills. So yeah, so it really depends on the community. Some it's the school that's driving it, with some it's the library. It just depends on the community.
Looking around the Bay Area, I've lived in different parts. I basically lived everywhere in the Bay Area, and I remember there being many places where I was shocked at how you just couldn't go shopping at a grocery store easily. Like, it's funny because so many communities that are well off, I feel like you can't throw a rock without hitting a grocery store. Yet when I lived in Richmond, for instance, I mean, you would have to go to another city to go to a grocery store in most cases. And a lot of times the food was being sold in like convenience stores, like the gas station. And we have many cities in the Bay Area where there's that going on, where there's just not a grocery store for miles. And if a family has to use the bus or public transit, it makes it pretty difficult. What have you seen for the impact of Charlie Cart in the Bay, just here in the Bay Area?
Yeah, I mean, access is definitely a huge challenge. And we hear that often from all of our organizations that we work with,
Yeah.
because they just see those challenges every day from families. And one of the things that I think Charlie Cart does really well is that we bring the food education and food access conversation to the forefront of what an organization is doing. Because once you've invested in a food education program like Charlie Cart, you are declaring that this is a priority for our community and that we are going to use this to address an established, well documented challenge that our community is having. So, one of the things that I see is once communities actually start using a Charlie Cart, then next thing you know, they're expanding their program and they decide we actually need a food pantry at the library,
Yeah.
because not only do we need to provide education and experiential learning for the kids, but the families are wanting to come and they're saying what you just said, which is, it's really hard to go find fresh fruits and vegetables. How can you help? So then the librarian is creating a food pantry at the library, or they're saying, okay, let's talk to the school and see if we can coordinate with the school this summer. Let's start a summer feeding program. We'll do distribution either at the school or the library. So in that way, it has so many tentacles to provide different types of solutions depending on what the community need is.
Now, I wanted to ask, for somebody who's listening to this or somebody who sees the website, how do they get involved? Like if somebody works for a library or a school and they really like this idea, how can they get involved with Charlie Cart?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, for a school or librarian, or even if you are just a community member who loves the library, talk to your community organization, talk to your principal, talk to your library director, and see if food literacy is important to them, if they are tackling that issue, if it's a need in the community, and then B, just tell them about what you've heard, tell them about the Charlie Cart and what we do. And there are plenty of examples that we have of other libraries or other schools who have implemented this program. So there's no shortage of information there. Um, and then if you're just a well-seasoned librarian fan and you just love listening and, share the podcast, share the information, you can also go to our website, which is www.charliecart.org, and you can donate to our organization to support what we're doing. But yeah, I'd say, sharing and talking about uh, food education and food access with your neighbors, with folks in your community is probably number one. One of the things that I learned when I visited some of the food banks we work with in North Carolina is, food banks are not just serving the lowest income folks in our community. They are serving everyday people
Yeah.
who are on the brink of a housing crisis, or they're on the brink of losing their job, or they were just short $100 this month, right?
Yep.
Or their WIC benefits ran out the third week, not the fourth week. So they're really just, they need that just extra helping hand. And so, I think in that way, it reminds me that we should all be talking about this, because this is a community level issue, and we should be aware that it may be your next door neighbor, it may be the person sitting next to you at church who just needs a little bit of extra help. And so it's an issue that touches all of us.
I want to ask you one last question. Do you have any stories or personal anecdotes about times when you got to talk to somebody who has been a recipient of the Charlie Cart program that kind of stuck with you and stayed in your memory?
Well, I think about the food services director in Staunton City, Virginia, who is this amazing leader. She used to work in hospitality and found her way to school and food nutrition. And her story resonates because her lived experience just completely resonates with the work that she does. And I say that because she shared with us that, she was once that single mom who struggled to feed her kids. So she can see that the kids who come through her lunch line, they want to be served with, they want to eat with pride, right? They don't want to be stigmatized because they're receiving a free lunch or a reduced price lunch. And she shared with us that because she also has that hospitality background, she just makes everything so beautiful and so special, and just blows it out for the kids. And she goes above and beyond with the Charlie Cart to make sure that every child is receiving an experiential learning experience with food. So it's not just the kids who can afford to go to a summer camp or can afford the after school program or things like that. It's every child. And she's incorporating the local bee person, and she's incorporating the local farmer, and all these community members to bring people together around food education, so that it's not just about, okay, eat your peas, or eat your spinach like it used to be. It's all about, let's learn together and experience this together, because we all deserve to eat something beautiful and delicious and healthy.
I'm so really enamored of Charlie Cart. I think it's a wonderful organization, and I really think you guys are heroes. And I thank you for what you guys do. You guys do great things for this country. So thank you for everything that you guys do.
Oh, thank you, Dean. Thank you. And it's really, I just want to say, it's really the folks out there in the field who take the extra step, that librarian, that school teacher, that person who is a champion for this cause and takes on the extra work. It's really about the educators as well.
Raquel, I want to thank you for being on the program, and I'm going to let everybody know that all the information to contact Charlie Cart will be on the information in the bio, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, etc. Just look on the information in the bio and you can see links to this organization. Raquel, thank you for being on the program. I really, really thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Dean.
That was my conversation with Raquel Sharp from Charlie Cart. We have information from the Charlie Cart website as a link on the bio. I mentioned this specifically because if you're interested in Charlie Cart or having it come out to where you're at, or come to your schools or local libraries or interact with them in any way, the bio link is really helpful. So please do contact them through that link. On Friday, we're going to be having a special guest, Sari Kamen, on the program. She's the public director of the Museum of Food and Drink and will be on Friday. She's also a podcast host. Food Without Borders is a really great podcast, still on Spotify and iTunes. Worth a listen. I really recommend it. She's also a really magnificent food writer. Again, she'll be here on Friday. If you follow my podcast and enjoy it, I have a link on the bio where you can buy me a coffee or a pint. If you like my work, you can offer a tip and share your insights. Help us promote this podcast and share this episode with a friend by sharing the tag @WellLibrarian on Instagram, share it on Twitter, whatever have you. I'm always really appreciative of that. You can follow the Well Seasoned Librarian podcast on Spotify or iTunes, and you'll get notified when new episodes are released. You can subscribe to the podcast newsletter and get updates on my articles and more at wellseasonedlibrarian@substack.com. Link on the bio also. Our podcast theme song, Talk About Love, is sung by the band Kitty Cat Fan Club. Their label, Asian Man Records, has given permission for its use. You can check them out and other magnificent bands on this label by going to asianmanrecords.com. I really urge you to check them out, maybe buy some merch from them as well. That's the episode today. I hope to see you all on Friday. Hope you're having a really great week. Keep on cooking.
I've been getting better than